Friedman, President and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, here with us tonight. We've been looking forward to this, and we finally have her here tonight. And she's going to be making a presentation on the JFO superhighway. So I will turn it over to Andrea.
Thank you so much. I really am grateful for the invitation and also for the timing of the invitation. We sort of put out a notice to all the congregations in Ottawa, and the first one to take us up on it was Temple, which was great, because then we told the other ones, hey, listen, we're booking Temple, when can we book you? And nobody wants to be left behind on the Jewish superhighway, so you guys really led the way. So we're very grateful for that. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight to share with you kind of a little bit about Federation and then a little bit about Ottawa's Jewish superhighway. I'm also very excited to spend time with you over Yom Kippur. So really looking forward to that, so I appreciate the invitation. So let me really start. This will be a two-part presentation. The first part, I'm going to talk a little bit about the relationship between Temple and Federation, and then move into the Jewish superhighway in terms of where we see the community going. So there are four places, or primary places, I should suggest, where Temple and Federation really intersect. So the first is around programming, the second is community issues, the third is services, and the fourth is funding. So we'll start with funding. And this is where we intersect in three different ways. We'll start with 24 beneficiary agencies. So if you have a family member or had a family member at Torah Lodge, if you have a child at Temple Israel's religious school, if you know of a family who's ever received services from Jewish Family Services, then you yourself know the impact of the Federation's annual campaign and the funding that agencies get. So Temple Israel members benefit from a myriad of services offered in Jewish Ottawa across the board. Some really positive in terms of education, and some when families are struggling and need a bit of a helping hand. So that's the first area. The second area is around EG grants, or emerging generation grants, which is really geared towards younger people. And here, individual members of Temple, as well as Temple itself, has the opportunity to apply for these grants. A great example is the program that took place, I think it was in June, with Curious George, which I was really sad to be out of town for, because I thought it was a really, really great idea. And that's a great example of where one of these micro grants can become really helpful to an organization to put on a really innovative, exciting program. I remember when Rabbi Murray first told me about it, I'm like, that is awesome. So we were pleased to be able to support that, and those grants are ongoing, and Temple and Temple members can apply at any time. The final area is innovation grants, which Temple is welcome to apply to at any time, and it's for capacity building projects. In this case, the most recent one that Temple got was less about capacity building at Temple and more about capacity building under Rabbi Murray's leadership in the community, where he applied for a grant for spiritual care at the hospitals to train people on how to do this. And we were really pleased to support this because it's a great example of a one-time grant that can have a really significant impact in people's lives. So the next area is really around services, and here there are three primary areas. There's professional development and expertise, there's volunteers, and there's promotion. So when it comes to professional development and expertise, there's a variety of different areas. One that took place last year that Temple really availed themselves of was when Federation brought in Ron Wolfson, who wrote the book on relational Judaism. For any one organization to bring in Dr. Wolfson is expensive, but if Federation can leverage our resources and bring it in on behalf of all the congregations in town and other organizations that have a lot of interface with community members, it's our absolute pleasure to do it. So we do that a number of times. We offer, usually at the beginning of the year, for new board members, a course on sort of budgeting, so that one of the major responsibilities of any board of directors is fiduciary, and not all of us come to those roles with that background, so it's really helpful preparation for it. A second is in the area of volunteers. Here it's in terms of leadership development and recognition. So really a good example of this is last year's Shem Tov Award winner, who's Romero, who's a very active Temple member. And it's nice to see people who do volunteer work across the community be recognized, not just within their own congregation, but in the broader community as well. So we're pleased to offer that on an annual basis to Ottawa's Jewish community. And the last one is in terms of promotion. The Ottawa Jewish Bulletin is obviously a key one. And the other one, which Temple really makes excellent use of, is our e-newsletter, which goes out every second week, once a month in the summer. It's a little quieter. And what we want to do is we really want to give every organization offering Jewish programs the widest possible platform. So it's great that Temple has their mailing list of Temple memberships, which means if the program's interesting to somebody who's already on your radar, they'll know about it. But by using our free services with e-news, potentially you'll capture even more people who might have an interest, maybe just in the program, or maybe an interest in exploring Temple a little bit further. So we think it's a really important way of driving participation in Jewish life. The third one is around community issues, and here there are three primary areas. The first is representation. I'll give you an example, which probably not everybody's aware of, but over the month of August, there were two incidences of anti-Semitic graffiti in Ottawa. So first of all, not everybody's aware of that. One in particular was a little more egregious than the other, and it was in Canada, and the councilman who represents that region issued an excellent statement on it, unequivocal condemnation, made it very clear that this sort of thing has no place in Jewish Ottawa. And immediately upon seeing his statement quoted in the media, we sent him a letter of thanks and appreciation for it. And he was really grateful for that. He said that you always have to speak out on these issues. But if you don't reach out to your politicians, sometimes they might forget that. So we're just meeting right now with all the newly elected MPPs on the provincial level. So yesterday we met with Joel Hardin, who I think is actually the representative for this riding. Yeah. So just as an FYI for you, I think if you were interested, you'd be very interested in an invitation to come to services, either on the Shabbat or on the holidays or something. I think he wants to do some outreach and the like, so I can certainly put you in touch if that's of interest to you. The second one is around crisis. This is unpredictable. These things pop up more than we'd like. A great example of this, and Deidre can speak to this quite clearly, would be the BDS issue on campus, where last year the University of Ottawa faced sort of 3 consecutive votes on BDS, and our students did an absolutely phenomenal job of organizing themselves and organizing their peers to come to educate them on this important issue and to go out and to vote. But they were given guidance. They were given guidance from the Federation, and they were given guidance from our advocacy organization, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. So I give the students full credit for winning those 3 votes, but I do think that the community's support enabled them to take the actions that they did. They had to implement it, they were on the front lines, and they also knew that they had support from the community when they needed it. And then finally, there's the issue of security, which unfortunately is always on our radar. My guess is a few years ago, you didn't have security cameras at your front door. You do now. It's an unfortunate necessity of life in 2018. We offer security on a variety of different ways. The most recent one I can give you is on September 5th, we're having a security briefing with experts from CJA to train people in time for the high holidays, to give updates, information on how to both be welcoming and also be careful and screen for something that doesn't necessarily belong. So that training will be taking place. Federation is offering it in conjunction with CJA for all synagogues. We encourage not just your executive directors and your leadership to participate, but ushers as well, because everybody has a role to play in that. The final area is really around programming, and here Federation does an awful lot. Let's see, there you are. Federation does an awful lot of programming. I will just focus on 2 in particular. The first, you want to go back?
I'm just shocked that you have
One of our kids.
one of our kids.
The first is PJ Library, which is really a phenomenal program which gives free Jewish-themed books to young children. It goes directly into their homes every month. Nothing's actually free. It's free to the families. It's not free to Federation. We pay for this on behalf of the community, and we're delighted to do it. I'm pleased to report that we have about a 71% market penetration rate amongst that age group. So 71% of the children who could be receiving a PJ Library book in this community who are of age actually signed up for the program, or their grandparents signed them up for the program, or their friend or somebody signed them up for the program, and they are receiving these books. And then the last one is Birthright Israel, which is, again, another free 10-day program in Israel, free for participants, but not free for community. There is a price that we have to pay in order to be able to have our community participate in this program. Last year, roughly 100 young adults in the Ottawa area participated on the program, and it is a game changer. It's fantastic for them. So that's a really sort of high-level overview to help sort of position where we are today in terms of Temple's relationship to Federation and Federation's relationship to Temple Israel. I want to spend the rest of the time really talking about where we're going. And by now, if you've spent any time with me, you've heard me talk about the Jewish superhighway. And what you'll hear me say over and over again is that the Jewish superhighway is a metaphor. And it's a metaphor for meaningful Jewish experiences and journeys where Jewish life is vibrant and no one is left behind. That's the vision. That's what we're trying to accomplish. It starts with, as most projects in the Jewish world need to, by necessity, it starts with raising more money. So every year the Federation has our annual campaign, and thanks to generous people like you, we do really well. We're able to fund the highest priority needs in our community. We're able to secure operating dollars for 24 different beneficiary agencies. But that's really important and it's really good, but it doesn't get everything that our community needs. Because those have become part of the operating budgets of those organizations, they're valuable dollars. But what we need is a second revenue stream. And this second revenue stream is designed to do more granting, to do more one-time grants, to get more individuals, to get more organizations that we can reach out to and give grants to so that we can work together and holistically to raise Jewish life in the city of Ottawa. So let me give you 4 examples. Actually, I'll do that in 1 second. Let me tell you a bit about the goal first, which is that we believe we've done sort of an assessment, and it's not to say that an additional $1.7 million will do everything we need to do. It's not even close. But we believe that an additional $1.7 million is a reasonable goal to shoot for and will get us much closer to our goal of building a vibrant Jewish superhighway. Now the good news is there's a variety of different ways that these monies can be raised. It's not all through the annual campaign, although a disproportionate part will be. We're very fortunate and very excited this year in the annual campaign that 3 very generous donors stepped up with an additional $500,000 added to their annual campaign gift this year. But it's a challenge fund. We get the money if people like you and me and lots of other people, don't worry, all increase our gift. So it's a matching fund to the annual campaign. So they'll match dollar for dollar every new or increased gift to the annual campaign, up to $500,000. So that's the goal. The goal is to raise $1 million more in this year's annual campaign. We spend a few minutes just kind of describing what the outcomes of these additional dollars will be. So the first is all about inspired Jewish experiences for all ages. The second is enriched Jewish education and learning. The third is to ensure care for the vulnerable. And the fourth is to provide a safe and secure community or a safe journey for everybody on the Jewish superhighway. Oops, great. Got excited. So Inspired Jewish Experiences is really all about entrance ramps onto the Jewish superhighway. It's somebody coming to a TOTS program for the first time at Temple and then deciding to come for the high holidays. Or it's somebody coming out to the Curious George program and then deciding to enroll their child in Temple Israel Middle School. It's all about the entrance ramps onto the Jewish superhighway. It's the PJ libraries. And it's the individuals in our communities who have really great ideas, who want to engage Jewishly, who want to do something on behalf of either themselves or behalf of an institution. So the great thing about building the Jewish superhighway is it's not just Federation-funded agencies, it's not just organizations and synagogues and temples and congregations in our community, but individuals can also join in the building of the Jewish superhighway to create these ramps. So the second one is enriching Jewish education and learning. We all know that research has shown it time and time again. It's not that it's the only way to create Jewish identity, but Jewish Day School Renewed is the most effective way of creating Jewish identity. And so what we need to do is we need to create Jewish schools of excellence. We need to create Jewish schools that parents want to send their children to. We need to make them more affordable, and we need to make it easier for people to get to. So remove any obstacles that we can think of to getting people enrolled in Jewish education programs, and that's a worthwhile endeavor. And to make sure that once we've removed those obstacles, that the Jewish programs are excellent, which keeps them coming back for more. The third one is ensuring care for the vulnerable. The best example that I have of this is a project that hopefully will be coming to fruition, and one that many of you have already heard about, and that's Tamir's Integrated Living Center, which the last provincial government announced $5.1 million for. The Azrieli Foundation also announced the beautiful gift of $2.5 million for. And what this teaches us is that there's a need to help those vulnerable members of our community. And if you come up with an innovative project and you have a bold vision that you express and develop, and that the action plans behind it back up that vision, you can find funding for it. You have to think big, and you have to remember the population you want to serve, and you have to think differently. You have to say, what's a better model of service delivery? How can we better meet the needs of people with special needs? And what do they need that they're not getting now? Dream big, and then take all the steps and actions that are necessary in order to build the project of your dreams. And then finally, we have a safe and secure community. And I will be very honest, this is not my favorite on the Jewish superhighway. It doesn't add value. It's not getting one more person, one more family into temple for the high holidays. It's not getting one more family into the temple's religious school. It's not getting one more person who joins a committee. But it's necessary in the year 2018. The reality that we live in is different, and we have to make sure that all organizations have the means to provide the safe and secure journey for everybody on the Jewish superhighway. So a great example of this is the federal government has a security infrastructure program, or a SIP grant. And what they will do is they will give you 50% of the funds for certain exterior security measures. 50% is great, but you guys serve on a federation board. You know that 50% still leaves you with a gap of 50% in your budget to get you where you need to be, and the budget is tight, and there isn't any room for flexibility. So what Federation intends to do is to set up a fund that any Jewish organization that successfully receives a SIP grant can then apply to us to be either a full match or a partial match, depending on the amount of the grant that was received from the federal government.
Andrea?
Yeah.
Question on that.
Please.
One of the complications that we had when we submitted the SIP grant was that we are not an audited institution. Would the Federation be able to co-sponsor the application?
The answer is I have to double check. If we can, then we're pleased to. I just have to check on whether it's possible. But if it is, then absolutely.
Great.
Yes. So the last thing I just want to sort of share is kind of putting the pieces together and share with you kind of what the vision, what the outcomes of this are, what a virtuous cycle of a healthy community, a growing community, a vibrant community looks like. So it starts with more frequent and significant Jewish experiences. It's more opportunities for people to engage in Jewish life in Ottawa at multiple points in their life. And then what that obviously leads to is a more involved and a more engaged Jewish community. Following from that, people don't love to talk about this one, but it does lead to more Jewish philanthropy, which is only important for what you can accomplish with the Jewish philanthropy. I'm not a big fan of saying, we're going to raise X number of dollars and that becomes the end goal in itself. It's not. It's what you can do with those dollars that's really, really important. And what you can do with those dollars is more Jewish philanthropy equals stronger community organizations. And then the whole cycle starts again. So stronger Jewish community organizations means more frequent and significant Jewish experiences. And it becomes a really virtuous cycle of community engagement. So that's really our vision for Ottawa's Jewish community. We view Temple as a prime player in achieving this vision. We hope that you see us as your partner in achieving your goals and your aspirations. But it's really a question of moving the Jewish community from really, really great to outstanding, to being a world-class Jewish community. And I say this quite honestly. I've lived in several Jewish communities. I moved to Ottawa 5.5 years ago. I think we have the potential to be one of the best Jewish communities in North America. All the building blocks are here. I think that we we have a very, very bright future ahead of us, and for that, I'm really excited. And I'm truly excited to work with all of you to build the Jewish superhighway, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Or not.
So is the 71% PJ Library a high percentage of participation?
It's pretty high, actually.
Because that's offered all over North America, right?
It's offered all over North America. It tends to have a higher penetration rates in cities of our size, but it's excellent. We're actually one of their model PJ communities. We do, for a couple of reasons. One is that we have a high market penetration rate. Another is that we do lots of programming. But the third one, which is really important, is that we do our programming in partnership. So very rarely does PJ do a program on its own. We partner with synagogues, we've partnered with temple, we partner with schools. We have a PJ Goes to Camp and Brit Day, because the whole idea is to use PJ as a gateway to other Jewish engagement. So the folks from the Harold Greenspoon Foundation often sort of point to us as one of their model communities.
So I co-chair the school committee here, and I have two questions for you. The first is in your presentation you were just talking about transportation and how it is a barrier. Certainly we've recognized it as a barrier. We've got Wednesday afternoon school that starts usually before most parents finish work, right after school, and then people who are coming from far away, well then they've got to either stay in town or go home and come back, or it's a challenge, and so I wondered what your perspective on that was. And the second question is, since the high school closed down, the day Jewish parochial high school, I wondered what, we've been kind of working towards having an accredited program here. It's a long and winding road, and I wonder what your thoughts on that were.
Okay, so I'll start with the first question, which was transportation. So it is a huge challenge, and here, as much as I think Ottawa is a fantastic Jewish community, we have a couple of challenges in front of us. So I moved here from Toronto. In Toronto's Jewish high school, literally has a bus that runs up Bathurst Street. It doesn't deviate from Bathurst Street. It starts at one end of the city on Bathurst Street and goes right to the school. And everybody walks the 2 or 3 blocks from their street to Bathurst Street, and it works. We don't have that luxury in Ottawa, and so we have to get really creative. So I'm happy to have that conversation with Temple to see if there's something we can do. The model that's working right now is in Alta Vista, and it's a bus that goes from Alta Vista to a number of different educational institutions. So it goes to OJCS and Torah Day and a couple of the preschools. And it works because the bus is leaving from one central location, and it has a critical mass because it's going to multiple locations. So it could be a little trickier when you're looking at supplementary schools, obviously. But one of the things that we are looking to increase funding for is a fund for capacity building for supplementary schools. So for one-time projects that would really enhance the curriculum or enhance access for students with special needs and the like. So that's one piece. And the second question was about the Jewish high school. Look, I think the research all shows, the more Jewish education that kids get, the better. And it's particularly impactful at the older levels. So interestingly, more parents make the decision to send their child to Jewish elementary school, and yet the research says high school is actually more impactful. So it's
more control.
Well, and they're also they're older. They're more able to as kids get older, they develop, and their capacity to learn more complex subject matter is there. And their Jewish identities, they're also, as you said, they're having more control over it. So it's a more impactful experience. If we can help support high school education in the city, we're happy to. We do know that in order to have a Jewish high school, a full-time high school, we did a major study a couple of years ago, and there are some very clear preconditions that are necessary to make that a reality. And one of them is that a committed group of parents who will form that core nucleus has to take some ownership over it. And without that group of activist parents saying, this is what I want for my child, in working with organizations to make that happen, it simply can't be something that is implanted in the community, or it won't be successful. So I know that there's a group in the community that's working to survey, to see if maybe there's some room. Federation, one of our roles is that of a convener. So if we can bring together different people who are interested in, even if it's different aspects of a high school education, to have one conversation, then we're delighted to do that.
Your question was about supplemental school participating, not so much about advocating for an actual high school, but
Right.
having us participate in that, because that's falling apart.
Create a community high school at the supplemental level.
So there is a community high school, supplementary community high school, but it is not a community high
Correct.
school. And so those of us who want a community supplementary high school, we are trying to make that happen.
Now,
Hopefully
to
we'll
add
have
to that,
federations back.
we do have an existing program.
Right.
It doesn't go all the way to grade 12, but
It ends in grade 10?
yeah. Right, grade 10 this year?
You go to grade 10, you
Well,
always.
we're hoping that this year we'll have an opportunity for 11th to 12th grade.
But it's not accredited, and so I'll be honest, the last number of years, we've been competing really with Torah High because they do offer a credit.
Right.
And I think that our program is different enough that there's room for two. And anytime that you get Jewish kids learning in the same space, I think that's a
It's a good
worthwhile.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, if we can be helpful to help foster that, we're happy to get people around the table to talk about it. I think it's a worthwhile goal, for sure.
I'm just going to carry on with one more point about education, because I looked at the components of the Jewish superhighway, which I love.
Thank
So I'm trying to decide if it's England or Australia, because
Yeah.
I thought it was just mirrored.
no,
Something happened with the designer, it flipped, and I'd love to see if every presentation somebody's pointed out, so I just know we were paying attention.
I'm really, really happy to hear that one of the sort of innovations for this year going forward will be a fund for some granting for supplementary schools. Because I've lived here all my life, I've seen the day school come and go and ebb and flow, and it's really exciting what the group of people that are working on that are working on, and they're bringing lots of resources and lots of money to that. But that model doesn't work for everybody,
Yeah.
and we know that. And we do know that while it has very successful outcomes, Jewish day school, good integrated Jewish elementary schools of all different kinds can also have those same kind of outcomes. So I'm really delighted, because I've always felt there's quite an imbalance, and the urgency of dealing with the day school, both the high school and the elementary school, has always kind of got a lot of people excited. But for almost as many people, the supplementary schools are the option that they choose. And if we're looking to bring more people onto the superhighway, perhaps that's an option or an entry point that they might like to see. So I'd like to see us come up with some ideas to pitch when the time comes for the supplemental, that component, to see both to augment, but also to see how we can make it integrated with other communities. Because we're not the only school, but we are the only synagogue.
Right.
A school which gives a little different,
So, it's a great point, and I agree with you, and that's really what the Jewish Superhighway is all about. I mean, there are some entrance ramps that will be more heavily funded, like Jewish Day School. It's a more expensive proposition, just by the nature of the timing of it. But creating more ramps are essential, and making sure that those ramps are strong is essential. I will say that you don't actually need to wait for the Jewish Superhighway funding to become available, because if there's a specific project that builds capacity in religious school here, you can apply through the Innovation Fund, and those come out twice a year. So, really pleased to, and our team really we don't like to have people apply for grants and not get them, so we're pretty candid about whether or not we think it will meet. The criteria is fairly clear, and we're pretty candid about whether or not we think it's likely to get funding or not. Now, there is a committee that makes those decisions, so we we can't say that definitively, but we have a pretty good track record of people applying who get funds. Unless they applied and we told them we didn't think it would get funding. And they still apply.
That's good to hear, because I know we've had some preliminary discussions, and we'll have more discussions here as to what projects may be suitable, not even necessarily with the school, but other projects. Sarah Butel has been in dialogue with us for a period of time, and now that the summer is kind of winding down, I think there'll be some more discussions about projects that can be identified across Temple.
Which is great.
And we're going to see which ramps work and that kind of thing.
And Sarah's pretty good at directing you to the right one. I remember, when Rabbi Murray first came to us with the Curious George idea, we directed him to the fund that we thought was the best out. Sorry? That's so nice to hear. I agree with you.
But we need a good traffic cop on the superhighway. It sounds like Sarah meets that criteria, so we hope to have many vehicles for her to direct.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Are there any further questions?
I have one. Is there any help available with learning how to be effective at fundraising?
I mean, there's no formal help. I'm happy to help.
Because it's not really something that we have a lot of competencies in or apparent interest in, and yet we need to develop these skills.
So, I mean, it's a big part of my job is fundraising. I think I'm pretty good at it. So I'm more than happy to be helpful, either sort of one-on-one or a small group, or just giving some strategy advice in terms of plans.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that would be my pleasure.
I have two questions. One is really concrete. A few years ago, you did some sessions with professionals that you offered to different organizations that were funded by Federation. I remember one in particular was on social media.
All right.
And it was really wonderful. I mean, I was there as part of this Al-Qaeda Center. I'm just wondering if there are any plans for that kind of cycle of programming again.
Yes, we do usually offer 2 a year.
Okay.
One is usually financial literacy, and one is a topic that sort of seems either to be timely or that people specifically request. So we're happy to continue that, and quite frankly, we're happy to do more of it if people are interested.
The second question is more an overview question. So we see things from our perspective here within Temple, and I'm just curious your view of how Temple is participating in Federation in comparison to other organizations. Do you see, are we missing opportunities? Are we doing something really well in terms of our relationship with you?
That's a great question. Wow.
You want to think about that one?
I do want to think about it a little more. I mean, both Sue and Rabbi Moray are pretty participatory and pretty in tune with funding because they come to. So we have like meetings of executive directors, and because Sue comes, she's really in the know as to what you can apply for and the like. Is there room to strengthen the relationship? 100%. Is it a reasonable one? I think so. I'd be curious to know your perspectives on that. I'd like to think a bit more about it because I want to be helpful in my answer. I'm not sure that I can on the fly.
So it's kind of, the questions come from two places. One is we're an organization and you're an organization and we want to understand our relationship in the larger structure. But also it's because there's a consciousness among progressive Jews that we're not always perfectly in the mainstream. And so it's also kind of, was that a polite way to put it?
Very, very diplomatic.
And so there's always kind of that sense of like, are we playing on the same field? Are we doing what we need to represent ourselves well and to participate in an effective way?
Right. So, I find this fascinating, and I'll be very candid with you because, I've gone to a couple of different congregational boards, and when I went to one that's Orthodox, they raised a very similar point, but with a very different perspective. Their feeling was that Federation isn't representing the Orthodox perspective, and that they're not represented on our board and the like. in what I told them was a little bit what I'm telling you tonight, which is that's fascinating because I hear the flip side from non-Orthodox folks all the time. So I honestly am a little bit stumped by it, and I don't 100% know what to do about it because clearly that's the perception, and clearly that's how people are feeling. I will suggest that Federation's board, we strive to make sure that there is some balance on it, both in terms of gender and religious affiliation, and we do. They're one of our past presidents is a member of Temple. Current board member, at least one, is a member of Temple. And we do look at these things because we really feel it's important to have different voices around the table. I will say that Rabbi Murray has been a really active participant in all of our institutions. Rabbi Garten has been very involved. He's we should all come to campaign kickoff. Rabbi Garten is one of the performers. Him and Rabbi Volka are doing performance.
And Senator Harley and I.
Oh, great! Yes. Okay. I'm also performing, but you should not come to see me.
We'll watch the video.
I had the rehearsal right before I came here. We need more rehearsal time.
So the question really wasn't a poison pill. It wasn't
No,
a critique. It's just so that kind of
it wasn't
sense.
interpreted that way.
Yeah,
It was. I mean, first of all, the question is if there are other ways that you can connect to community,
Right.
you want to do that, and I think that's a very valuable question, and that's the piece that I want to think about a little bit more to see if there's a concrete example that I can give you. But the second one is just that general observation, which is that everybody's sort of feeling. Interestingly, everybody feels a little marginalized.
I don't know if people at KBI do. So there is a feeling. Well, but there's a feeling in Ottawa that there's this big middle, and then there's. Yes.
I think you'd be surprised.
Okay.
I think everybody feels. I don't even know if marginalized or but everybody. I'll use marginalized. I think everybody feels a little bit marginalized, and everybody feels that Federation. It's one particular brand of Judaism over another, and it's really. I personally don't think it's true, but it's difficult to argue with how people feel.
Yeah, I wasn't coming at it as that Federation sees us differently, but wondering about, in comparison to other synagogues, if we're leveraging the relationship in similar ways or in equitable ways or like that.
Yeah,
Like that.
So I would throw it out in a different sort of way and say, I think we have opportunities to participate in the Federation process in lots of different ways that we may not have taken advantage of in the past, right? In greater numbers, right? We have had some representation and involvement with Federation, but it hasn't been at a significant or high level for a while. And I guess part of the challenge for this group is, as leadership, to develop people who are interested in stepping up and being involved, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm fascinated by the picture, and it occurs to me that the Jewish superhighway isn't just for individuals, it's also for the organizations and agencies.
100%.
And when I heard the questions, I thought about all of the things that I've gone to that have been facilitated or organized by Federation as the umbrella, or partnerships that have been suggested by Federation where partners have taken advantage, and whether it's Yom HaAtzmaut, or whether it was Ron Wolfson, or whether it's the kickoff, the best advantage or the best benefit is sitting with people from other organizations who we may know or may not know, but we're together in this, and that's the only way that we'll actually understand. We may never agree on the details of something, but we'll know each other, and we'll recognize each other, and we'll understand each other. And the superhighway, focus on bringing individuals, but bringing the organizations in. But it's up to the organizations to go on that on-ramp.
For sure.
It'd be interesting to get Andrea's feedback, as she mentioned, we're really thinking about things, how we relate to the rest of the community and how the community relates to us. Okay, are there any other points that anybody wishes to raise at this time? Well, if that's the case, thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome here at any time, and we look forward to getting more feedback from you as to, as I said, how we're doing and how we relate to the rest of the Jewish community in Ottawa and beyond as well. Thank you, Andrea.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate this.
Okay, we'll take a couple of moments so that can tear down here, and then we'll resume our